Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fully Booked, the Hidden Gems author podcast, in which Craig Touch and myself, Roland Hume, chat some of the interesting figures and leading lights of this crazy industry of writing and self-publishing. And today we have a wonderful guest joining us. It is Jason Brick, who has an awesome name. You sound like a martial arts hero from a movie or something, and you are a martial artist as well as a writer. So Jason, thank you so much for joining us. We are overjoyed to have you here. How are you doing today?
Doing really well, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we wouldn't be here without the man himself, Craig Touch, the owner and founder of Hidden Gems and an author himself. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Roland. Thanks, Jason, for coming on. You have a pretty long career. I don't want to say long, but but you've written a lot. You've written over 100 books and 10,000 articles. You speak to writers, and one of the things we want to talk to you about today is, I guess, one of the things you speak about is how to turn writing into sort of a career, like the habits that make somebody a writer professionally, right? So let's talk a bit about your, how you got to this point and your career there, and then we'll dive into that.
Sure thing. The main thing is that I like eating food and I like sleeping indoors and I like being able to make sure my kids can do the same, but I don't like having a real job. And so
I relate to this.
We're all writers,
right? And what happened was when I was very young, one of my very first memories is before I could actually write, making up stories in my head and scribbling on paper and pretending I was writing. And I got a lot of attention from teachers and, little local contests about my writing all through grade school, all through middle school, had my first published stuff in high school. My two best friends in high school, one was a best-selling nonfiction author, one was a technical writer, paid publication in college, got a lot of attention, majored in English, got a lot of professors and the grad teaching assistants telling me that I could do this professionally. And so naturally, I went into an entirely different industry for the first 15 years of my adult life, which was martial arts. And that journey included travel to Japan for a couple of years, running my own studio, doing some work as a bodyguard, as a bouncer, stuff like that. And then I had my first kid, and he got to be grade school age. I actually adopted a 7-year-old. And running a school evenings and weekends job, which meant I couldn't be the dad I wanted to be. And so I sold my studio to a competitor in town. And through the whole time I was running the studio, because I did have this interest for writing, I was writing all my own ad copy. I had a column in the local newspaper about safety and fitness, had a couple articles in Black Belt, that sort of thing. And I was able to transmute that into a full-time writing gig in about a year.
Good for you. That's amazing. I mean, that takes more than just a smile.
It took some work, but one of the I'll share a story from a time I was presenting at a writers conference in Southern Oregon, and there were 12 speakers, and they did that thing that I don't particularly like from writers conferences, where they have the grown-ups table where all the staff sit together. I much prefer the ones where it's either required or encouraged that the staff go sit at the tables with everybody else, so you can spend time with the people who paid to be there. But at this one, we were at all of us were together at the table. 3 of us were men, and I found out all 3 of us had wrestled in high school and college. And we kind of asked the women, and of the 9 women, 8 of them had been athletes or in band or in drama. And my wholly unscientific hypothesis from that was that if you're an athlete, if you're an actor, if you're a musician, in school from very early age, you have a relationship with mistakes where coach or teacher says, hey, you did that wrong, tweak it a little, try again. And there's no blame, there's no moral failure. It's just this iterative improvement by people spotting your mistakes. But if you remember from our high school math class, if you got a 99% on that test, you felt a little bad about the 1%, and you never got a chance to go back and do it again. And I think that if you grow up with this experience of iterative failure and having somebody respects you tell you to do it again, you have a mindset that allows success in writing, especially where you're going to hear no, 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 and then after you hear yes, some editor is going to come in and tear a part of your soul into tiny little pieces.
That's such an interesting perspective. I'd never thought about it that way, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that's probably why a lot of authors these days go into self-publishing. They don't want to hear no, no, no all the time, or they can't take it. You know, I mean, I didn't never tried either. I had a similar sort of background in the sense, definitely not the physical side of it, although I did take some martial arts, but the idea that, you know, I was writing from a young age and did all that and thought that was probably where it was going to be. And then I ended up going into computers. So, and it wasn't until years later where I said, you know, I wanted to try the writing thing and went that way. And then that's when self-publishing was coming on. So I just went that route. I never, you know, I think for me, it was kind of that fear of no, that idea that everyone always said writing is so hard. All these people try and most people are not going to succeed. And you'll send your book out and they'll get rejected. And I personally didn't want to put myself through that. So I never took the chance. Right. Mm-hmm. So then later, you know, when I didn't have to face that sort of rejection, I went that route. So I wonder if that's sort of one of the things that fuels the self-publishing boom.
It really could. I mean, one thing to kind of keep in mind, especially if you're going the agent route, the traditional publishing route, is anytime you query an editor or an agent who doesn't know you, you are sending unsolicited promotional emails. And if you got a 2% response rate on unsolicited promotional emails, you can quit your job and teach email marketing to people for the rest of your life. And so
brilliant way to look at it.
And so when people are telling me, yeah, I queried like 20 agents and I never got nothing, I'm like, buddy, you've done 10% of the minimum required load before you can even start complaining. Yeah. And that just, one thing I say to myself sometimes is, in this industry, the feedback doesn't come with breaking my nose. Where when I was fighting, if I made a mistake, I learned it in a much less pleasant manner.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. So now when you speak, is that sort of one of the, or when you talk to writers about the habits that they need, is that sort of one of those tenets of it is, don't take no for an answer, fight back. The
way I like to phrase it is, go suck at something. Most of the time, by the time we graduate from college, we spend the rest of our lives getting better at things we're already good at. And we forget how to suck at things. But getting regular practice sucking at things is how we build up that resilience for when we say no, for when we make a mistake, for when we wake up in the morning really embarrassed by the thing we did last night. For example, last year, because writing is a location independent career, I was able to take my son and my wife, and we lived in Crete for the year.
Oh, wow.
And we went and I found a little jujitsu and judo school there. And I've never done judo, never in my life. And it's a very, very difficult martial art. And I didn't tell them about my other experience. She showed up in a white belt and took judo for a year. I suck at judo, man. I am really bad at judo.
Judo was my was the one that I did.
Yeah, it's
judo.
I don't like getting punched. I'd rather just throw people.
Yeah, it gets tricky and it's technical. And when you screw up, it hurts because they hit you with the whole planet.
That's true.
And at the same time,
they throw you into the whole planet. But
exactly. Yeah. And at the same time, because of my martial arts career, I still do a lot of seminars and stuff. I'm used to walking into a school and receiving a certain kind of treatment because of my rank and my time and the fact that I'm there doing a seminar. But over there, I told nobody nothing. So here I was, a guy who didn't speak the language, wearing a white belt, looking like an idiot, being treated like an idiot. And so it's a real good reminder of how, sucking and giving yourself permission to suck is good for you.
Yeah, it's funny saying that, like writing and martial arts, they're both things in which you get humbled pretty early on.
Yeah.
But that must have been amazing. I'm always, everything's going on with immigration here. And as an immigrant to America, I always think I've had a huge privilege because I speak English with this cute accent that Americans like. Whereas, you meet people, I live in an area with tons of Indian people here, and you're talking to them, they have master's degrees, they're doctors and stuff like that. And then to the average American, it's like, he's got an accent, he's probably not that smart, he can't understand what I'm saying. And it's like, this person is so much more educated and intelligent than you, just in a different language.
And given that he came all the way over here from wherever he was, probably braver.
Yeah.
Yeah. but it's interesting. So yeah, that's how I like to phrase that, less about be tougher, less about don't take no for an answer, but just honestly, if you haven't sucked in a while, go get practice at sucking at something.
That's what my wife says. I get practice
makes
every day. Everything I do.
And some of us are better at sucking at things.
I've heard that about
I've
you.
got that nailed.
That's what she said. No. So what other kind of advice do you give besides, learn to suck?
Yeah, so one of the big courses that I give that I have an opportunity to teach a lot is my one on writer's block, beating writer's block. And the thesis behind that is writer's block doesn't exist. It's nonsense. There's a story from, I don't know if you guys remember Robert B. Parker. He wrote the Spencer series back in the 80s and the 90s. There's a TV show, Spencer for Hire, that was based on it that we might have heard of.
That's a name I've not heard in a long, long time.
Yeah. I think I used to watch that.
Yeah. So, he's an incredibly successful writing career. And he was in an interview that I saw with a woman who said, and he was just talking about his writing day. And his writing day was get up, have breakfast, work out, sit down, write 5 pages. Sometimes he's done by noon. Sometimes he's done at midnight. Just sits his ass down and writes his 5 pages. And the interviewer asked, well, what do you do when you have writer's block? And his response was, ma'am, I'm a professional writer. Did your plumber ever cancel an appointment because he had a plumber's block?
I mean, that's a very pragmatic way.
There's a plumber, it's a step-by-step thing, right? But I do get it. I mean, like, if you're blocked on the current thing that you're writing because you can't think of where it should go, write something else. Doesn't mean you have to stop writing completely.
And that's a good point, and I bring that up during the talk because there's no such thing as writer's block. The difference between an amateur and a professional is the professional does it when they need to, not when they feel like it. And again, there is this thing that we experience as writers where the words aren't coming. But writer's block is not a useful label to put on that because there's nothing you can do about it. Instead, you sit with yourself and go, okay, what am I just burned out today? Am I tired? Am I mad because of the fight I had with my wife last night? Am I nervous about writing this particular scene because it's going to engage with some of my own emotions and experience that I'm not comfortable with? Am I nervous about writing this scene because it involves disarming a bomb and I know nothing about disarming bombs? Am I just really tired of this manuscript because this is my 3rd round of edits and I just can't deal with it today?
That's really interesting. I've read a lot about, procrastination isn't laziness. Often there's an emotional block. And with writing, it can be like, I want to write, if you write something good, it has to have conflict and emotion in it. And you have to put your heroes and heroines through hell. And sometimes you're like, I don't really want to go through hell right at this moment. I'm like just barely clinging on to real life. I don't want to delve into that. And so it creates that block.
Yeah, and as Craig says, sometimes the answer is to write a different thing because you're just not ready for that scene that day, or maybe you're a tired brain, so you were supposed to write new stuff, but you just go rewrite or do some editing that you do because your brain just doesn't have it today. Or if if you fought with your wife, go apologize to your wife, have a nooner, and then come back and do it again and do the writing, whatever it is. Just the idea of it's writer's block. I can't write today. And instead sitting there, looking yourself in the eye and figuring out, okay, what's really happening? Because once you put a name on what's happening, solutions are pretty easy to find.
Right. And I think that the idea that you want to dig deep and figure it out, but that you can also do other things and writing other things. You could, like you're saying, about disarming the bomb, you can go research for a while, and that might trigger you to some creativity. There's other things you can do other than just be like, well, I can't write, I've got writer's block, and then just give up, walk away.
Yeah, especially if you're not full-time, especially if you've got a job or you're a stay-at-home parent with school-age kids and you've got that 1 hour to write today,
right?
And you got 3 sessions this week. The last thing in the world you want is to not accomplish what you needed to.
Right. You need to make some progress. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you in my mind, the progress might be planning, some of the next chapters, the next book, doing the research. If you really can't write, it doesn't mean stop work that day. It means, maybe just do something different that still furthers your career.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if we're writing full time, then we can. If we were going to write for 3 hours in the morning and go to the gym in the afternoon, maybe we just go to the gym in the morning and then write in the afternoon.
Mhm.
And there's hacks too, where if maybe you're not really sure what's going on, you can take the laptop out to the backyard, or you can take it to the local pub or the coffee shop, or close the laptop and grab a spiral notebook and a pen and sit in the hammock. Changing venue often helps. And there's other little things like one of my big ones is once you have momentum, you ever have that thing where you get to a scene and you just can't write that scene, and then 20 minutes later you've written 2 words. You can just typey. Okay, I'm not in the right mindset to block out this fight scene. So just write great big fight and then move on, and then come back to it later, or anything.
Don't leave that in your final draft.
Yeah, exactly. For example, I have a real trouble where if I stop typing to go research something, 3 hours later I've researched the thing and I know a whole lot about the history of Denmark for some reason. Right?
Yes, I've been there.
So you just put in a little placeholder. I'm gonna look up this date and keep that momentum going. And then the other one, and I wish I could remember who I heard this from because it is one of the most effective beat writer's block hacks, which is, 90% of the time our writer's block happens when we sit down on the screen in the morning and don't know what sentence to type first, right? So what you do is when your writing session ends, resist the temptation to finish your sentence. Just walk away.
Yeah.
Because then you come in the morning, you know exactly what to type, and it's been bugging you for 12 hours.
I've heard Hemingway use that method quite a lot.
Yeah. And it works, man. It really works.
My fear of doing that would be that I would forget what I was doing. Right. And then I'll come back and think, oh, I had something great and now I can't remember it because I have a terrible memory. I would be very fearful of doing it that way. But yes, I have heard that one as well.
That's fair. Yeah. The too long didn't read version, writer's block in a thing, but there are things that can stop you from writing. And the sooner you can look at those, identify them, and find your personal solutions for them, the more you're going to get written this year.
And you've written 100 books, you said?
I have written, edited, or contributed to 100 books. There are 100, well, when I stopped counting 8 years ago. There are books with my name in the credits. There's more than 100 books with my name in the credits out there. I've personally written, I want to say a little more than 20.
But that's still a lot.
And are they all in the same sort of genre? Or
No. I pay what someone will give me money to write, or I write what someone will give me money to write.
I like that attitude.
No. Yeah, I'm looking back, I wouldn't actually advise that, because as I'm starting to kind of specialize accidentally into a couple of areas, I have less competition and higher rates than back when I was just writing whatever somebody would do. And especially with AI now, the way that it's messing with the market, the sooner you can develop a specialized reputation, I think the better you're going to do.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah.
And that's for writing articles and such, though. But with your novels, did you have a preference for the type of novels you would write?
So I've got 2 sets of novels in my name right now. One is a young adult urban fantasy about martial arts high schoolers who fight demons. And the other one is a series of crime novels with sex, drugs, and violence all happening at the same time. That I have under the pseudonym of my grandmother's name, because I don't want the young adult audience accidentally picking up one of those and reading it. Those are, and so that's the fiction involved in. Sometimes, all kinds of short stories and stuff too.
So what is writer's block sort of the main problem that you hear about when you're at these conferences and talking to other writers?
So that's a big one. I also do several, often I'll tailor it to the event about applying business systems, business accountability, martial arts accountability to the writing process. Because, there's writer's block, but there's also, I don't have time. And there's also, my friends keep asking me to help them move when it's my writing day, right? That my family doesn't take my writing seriously as a career.
Right.
And so they keep eating in my writing time, or, all kinds of, there's a lot of things that can be solved by creating personal systems and treating your professional writing like a profession. Right.
Yeah, I think we all have heard that, where people think that, you're a writer, you're just sitting around all day, so you can come and help me, and they don't take it seriously. Yeah, I mean, I think people these days working from home, when that all started, or before COVID, I think when people were working from home, that's sort of what people thought too. It's like code for taking the day off. Now I think maybe there's a little bit more understanding of it because everyone started working from home. But there's
I can say with definitive fact that no, there isn't any more understanding from it, from my wife anyway.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're home? That's great. Here's a list of chores.
Yeah, that's it. And it is rough. Like, I was the guy who worked from home. And also I was their martial arts friend. So I was the buff one. So absolutely, I was being called to move the furniture. And as of about a year and a month ago, I'm the buff friend who works from home who has a truck. So I'm amazed I get anything done. But I think everybody has their version of that they're the friend that everybody wants to go to coffee with. They're the friend they call when they have trouble because you're at home. Or the writing, you're in the office writing, but your kids want to play Monopoly or a much better board game than Monopoly, please. And it's, and people don't take that seriously. There's a great story about Ray Bradbury about that, actually, that he writes about in his memoir, where when he was writing Fahrenheit 451, it was during the summer and his daughters were like 4 and 6 years old. And he absolutely could not say no when they wanted to play. So he went to the local university, and this was back when you plunked dimes in typewriters in a room in the library, and wrote it like that. So Fahrenheit 451 is quite literally a dime novel.
Literally a dime novel. I love that. God,
I mean, I think that's what a lot of writers do, though. They'll that's why they go to the coffee shops. It's a change of scenery, but it also gets you away and makes it seem like you're going to an office, or that's your writing time, and it breaks up. This is I'm sitting at home versus this is I'm working, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the habits that you think a successful writer should have, having, I guess, that the discipline to write every day, to set aside the time. What else? What other habits?
I'm really suspicious of the word discipline, which I think is a little surprising given my background, just because it's so judgy. And most people view it as a talent instead of a skill, if you know what I'm saying. That is something you have and you don't have. But if your writing time is 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., because that's when you can. That's when the kids are in bed and your partner's having their little wind down session before bed or whatever. If that's the time, and you have to put electric fence wire around the TV room door and promise yourself ice cream if you got your 500 words, and stand on one foot and phone a friend. As long as you got it done, you can't succeed the wrong way. And so I don't want to throw only the disciplined man will be successful. No, just do what you have to talk yourself into doing the thing.
So as long as you're committed to doing it.
Yeah. And then, habits build habits. So if you succeed at writing at 9 or writing at 8 or whatever the time is, if you succeed at writing for an hour or writing your 500 words or whatever your definition of a successful session is, and you just be in that habit, if you do it twice in a row, you're more likely to do it 3 times in a row. If you do it 2 weeks in a row, you're more likely to do it a month in a row. And just setting those goals, making them really easy at first. You can ramp them up as you get more and more in the practice of succeeding at this thing.
Yeah, I think, Roland, I think maybe you wrote an article once where you talked about the number of times you had to do something before it becomes a habit. There was some magic number, I feel like.
I mean, I heard it was 30 days, wasn't it? It's
if you did something 30 days in a row.
30 days and it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
I've heard 30, I've heard 90. Also, a lot of research in the last 10 years has been showing that if you do it in some kind of play or game format, it takes like 8. That we learn things, we retain things faster, we build habits quicker if it's in the format of a game or something. So even something as simple as taking a gold star and putting it on your calendar every day you succeed turns into a game with points and a win condition. And it's weird. It's frankly weird how much of a difference that makes. I mean, I'm not much of a guy, but it's weird.
Gamification, yeah. I mean, that's why so many things sort of go that way. Apps and turning exercise into a game, a social thing, and yeah.
I think that's why NaNoWriMo's has been so successful.
Yeah.
It gamifies your workout.
Yeah, although that's collapsed, right?
I haven't paid a lot of attention to it recently, but
there was some big controversies on it. But people can still write for a month, but the official place sort of.
And why would you do that in November with Thanksgiving and everything? Like, do it in like March. What happens in March?
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know. Rimo. It doesn't rhyme as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So you have to be able to build a habit. You have to take it seriously. You have to, not just be like, I can't write today because I can't think of what to write on this day. What else? What else do professional writers really need to work on to make sure that they're going to be successful and they have those skills that they need?
So one of the biggest, this was advice I got from a sensei very long ago that's just stuck with me. Interestingly, a couple of years ago, I asked permission to quote him, and he doesn't remember saying it. It was just something he was popping off one day. But one of the problems that we have in our culture is we set our short-term goals too high and our long-term goals too low. And the example is January 1st, you get your gym membership. And you're like, I'm going to be here 5 days a week. I'm going to never skip leg day. I'm going to, and you have this whole plan because you're excited about it. And you set up a workout schedule that's completely unsustainable. And by Valentine's Day, you're done. And we do this over and over and over again with our things because humans are excitable creatures. And then we build this habit, this condition where we expect that, what are the goals going to do for me really? I've over and over and over again done something really intensely for 6 weeks and then stopped. And we lose track of the fact that if instead you just did 15 minutes of work, you wrote a page a day for a year without stopping, you'd have a 365-page book at the end of a year. And
right.
In the martial arts and in other pursuits like that, doing 10 leg kicks in class, 100 leg kicks at home, I'm not going to be a black belt that next day. But if I do that consistently 3 times a week for 5 years, then you're doing something impressive. And that's that relationship with long-term goals, the immense power of incremental progress towards a long-term goal set in terms of years is hugely powerful. And I think a lot of us has lost touch with that.
Yeah.
It's a great psychological thing when you achieve. I think that really getting wins is one of the ways to motivate yourself and keep on going.
Yeah, and I think the idea that setting those short-term goals too high is important as well, because if you do that, it's probably more of a demotivator when you can't reach them. And then
you fail all the time. And and then you don't believe in the next time. You believe a little less, and you believe a little less.
And you won't believe in maybe your long-term goal, which is more attainable.
Exactly, because you don't have success, you don't have experience with achieving massive goals. And so it's a mindset switch, which again goes back to give yourself permission to suck. Go take a pottery class somewhere where, after a semester at the community college, you've paid your money, so you're going to go to class. You're actually doing much better with pottery than you did at the beginning, and just kind of, again, build that habit and expectation of success in increments.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, setting a goal, if you want to write a book in a year, if you break it down into those small things, a page a day, or, figure out how many days a week you can realistically do it, and don't try to set it too high. Don't be like, I'm going to write 5,000 words a day. It doesn't have to be that way. If you want to write a book in a year, you certainly don't need to write 5,000 words in a day. And, how sustainable is that? It might be sustainable for a few days, but it's probably not sustainable for a longer period of time.
Yeah. I've been doing this professionally for a very long time, and I can produce 4,000 quality words a day sustainably, but that's after almost 2 decades of practice. So that set a goal that works for what you can write and how you can write it.
Right, and I think that's also important to note is people shouldn't set their goals based on what other people's goals are.
Yeah, don't look at other people's buckets. Take a look at what you are and how are you going to be a little better tomorrow.
Right. That's something I've often tried to teach to my kids. It's like, just because, it looks like that's easy because that person can do it because he's been doing it for years and years and years, and you can do that too, but you start smaller and like set goals that are attainable for you. And then, you can get to that point, but nobody wakes up an expert in something.
No. And also just don't judge yourself by the standards of Terry Pratchett and John Steinbeck and Harper Lee, right? Like, I'll never write as well as them.
I always say that Harper Lee is the only author who ever became successful writing one book.
Yeah.
And didn't she get gifted a year's salary by her friends to go and write the book? So
I don't know, but that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
okay. Yeah. So those are good habits. Those are good pieces of advice. Any other ones that people should really focus on?
The biggest one, again, I think, is we're going to have to use the M word, the sales and marketing word. One of the deep unfair things about this industry is how many things you need to be good at that aren't writing in order to. And a lot of us are sales and marketing phobic. We think of used car salesmen. We think of that buddy of ours who got into an MLM and hit us up on Facebook last week.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we think of marketing. And also because most of us were liberal arts majors, we really have no idea where to start. I was fortunate enough that I came into this from a business background, and I was trained within that business by somebody who was very savvy. And then 2 of my first ghostwriting projects were for MBAs, people with masters in business administration writing about a specific marketing topic. So I happened to get some very solid training and mentoring from some very smart people. And just, but being willing to do sales, being willing to learn sales. And then also, again, with sales, good sales is just being so nerdily enthusiastic about something that it's contagious and somebody else catches it, right? If you read a book a friend recommended, they sold that book to you.
Yeah.
If you're married, you sold something once and you probably enjoyed the experience.
So that's brilliant advice. My career started selling radio advertising, radio spots. I was selling 30 seconds of air, and I sucked at it. And the reason I sucked at it is because I didn't believe in what I was doing. Like, there's this tiny radio station with 2,000 listeners, and I'm like, I've got more subscribers than that on my YouTube channel these days. So I didn't believe in what I was selling. And then when you have a product you believe in, then it's easy to sell. And you're like, yeah, I think that Craig and I always struggle when we're trying to give services to authors, because it's like we want to make sure our services provide value, so we feel good about it. And it's like, I think that's an important thing. And if you feel good about something and you feel like you are providing value to somebody with this product, then it doesn't feel like sale. It doesn't feel like sales. It feels like, hey, you should use this. This will change your life. This is good for you.
Yeah, and I think with for a lot of authors, there's a huge dose of imposter syndrome getting in the way of that. Like, oh, I just throw some words together. I'm not anything special. But yeah, you're special. You wrote a book, dude. And you liked it enough to finish it. And if you really don't think your book's good enough to be nerdy about, go write a better book. Yeah. But yeah, just having that understanding that sales is just being so enthusiastic about something you love and believe in that you can't help but share it with other people and recommend your books the way that you recommend the last book you really loved and you knew just who would love it too.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things I hear about the most as well is writers just want to write, they don't want to learn how to advertise on Facebook and Amazon and, BookBub, and they don't want to go find newsletters and, get cover designs and, it's daunting. Right. And I mean, you can hire out, you can learn figure out what you don't know. But that takes money, and especially when you're starting, you don't necessarily want to be spending more money than you're taking in. But sometimes you have to sort of take that chance, otherwise you hamper your own success by not doing what you need to do. These days you can't write a great book and just expect that people will find it, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. And one thing to kind of keep in mind about that is also, if you wrote a business plan and went to get a small business loan, and your business plan was that you wouldn't show a profit for 5 years, most loan officers would go, that's about right. A lot of businesses take years to get profitable. And so if you have the ability to, because you've got a full-time job or you've got a spouse who works, to invest that time and money, not expecting to be cash positive for a couple of years, and you throw money at Facebook ads until you figure it out, or you hire somebody who does it, and that makes just enough money to pay for itself and start generating some leads and some money, then reinvest that money in another marketing arm and just do that again and again and again. Pretty soon you'll have enough marketing to start producing real money. Now, that's not everybody can do that. If you're you're just about to graduate from college and want to go there full time starting tomorrow, and your parents' basement's flooded last week, or your little brother's using it for D&D or whatever. I'm not making fun of D&D people. I'm a huge D&D nerd. About 20 of my books are role-playing game books.
I saw that. That's birds of a feather we are.
Yeah, but so if that's what you got to do, or you just lost your job and you're trying to figure out how to feed your family next week, that's not the plan. But if you do have that time and a little extra money, that's a way to do it. And again, approach it like a business, understanding that most starting businesses don't turn a profit for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I don't think that a lot of authors think about it in that sense, which they should, I guess, because we often say treat your publishing as a business.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not one of the pieces that we often talk about, is like a business, don't expect to make any money for a few years. I mean, we do say it takes time, and the more product you have to sell, the more successful you can be, and the cheaper your advertising can be to turn a profit. Because if you can get somebody to read one book and they then go read the rest of your books, you're going to make more money than if you only had one book to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But you have to build that following too, which also takes time and can take years.
Takes time and energy and knowledge. There's right ways and wrong ways to use social media to find fans. There's right ways and wrong ways to set up community events, and have your little table at the farmers market. Like little things like if you're self-publishing, you have your own books out, or you're with a small press and you have your own books out. It's tempting to go to the Friends of the Library authors gathering, sure, but you're in the room in direct competition with another dozen or 2 dozen writers. Get a table at the farmers market, you're one of maybe 2 people selling books that day at that event.
True.
We should all go to at least one writing conference a year to check in with our homies, but also go to a conference for the industry in which you write. Because there's 100 people there who need copy.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I did go to a farmer's market, I think it was last summer, and there was somebody there, an author that had set up a booth and was selling her book, and I thought to myself that was an odd choice, because it's not the typical place that you would find that sort of thing, but from that perspective, she was the only author there. So yeah.
And it's just one of those little things that when you approach marketing like a marketer, like a business owner, rather than like an artist. And I don't want to shit on artists. We're all artists here. Literature is an art. But your artist brain is for when you're in front of your keyboard, and then you got to put on your business brain for when you're figuring out how to afford to keep doing this.
Yeah, I think the business brain is the part that a lot of authors don't have naturally. And
I think there's also mental blocks. It's like you say, oh, I'm an artist, I'm a writer, and there's the penniless writer, that cliche of that. And so you're like, oh, if I'm going to be a writer, as part of my identity, being poor is part of that.
Yeah, and there's this sense of selling out. Like, so a lot of my early money came from writing blog posts for companies, right? Oh, I'm selling out my talent by writing these commercial things. But my viewpoint was, at that point, man, what's selling out my talent? Doing that, or working full time at Home Depot and having an hour to practice when I get home?
No, I think that's one of those those questions that I often ask authors when they're looking for advice. One of the first questions I ask them is, are you writing, to make a living, or are you writing for the art, for the love of it, right? Because those are two very different things that require very different kinds of advice. And I don't think when somebody says, "Oh, you're just doing it for the money," almost like as an insult, I don't think of it as an insult. It's like that. Yeah, that's my job. Do you work at Home Depot because you love it, or because is it just for the money? Like, why should we judge writers any differently? And so, and Roland and I, or at least, for me, I know Roland read it more, but for me, when I started writing and I was writing romance novels, I wasn't a romance novel reader, but that was what made money. That was the easiest thing to sell. And so, and I wanted to make money. I had a job. I left my job. I went on a leave of absence to see if I could make it as a writer. And within 3 months, I was making as much as my full-time job. So I quit and I wrote romance. And did I feel like a sellout because I don't read romance? I'm more of a science fiction fantasy reader. Yeah, not really. I was just like, this.
And also, if you go to an RWA conference, you find out immediately these are some badass ninja marketing people. The Romance Writers of America, they have no illusions about what they're doing, and they do it really, really well. They just make piles of money.
And going back to what I said earlier about you want as an ethical person, you want to provide value with whatever it is you're doing. And like, there are people who want to read romance books. And so if you write a romance book that meets the standards of what they want to read, you are providing them a product that they feel is valuable. And then, that does work. And then my whole thing with my romance novels is I wanted to write adventure stories. So I took the adventure story and I just focused on the romance angle. If you take Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it's fighting Nazis and digging up things, but if you concentrate on Indy and Marion, then that's a romance novel. It's a deeply disturbing romance novel if you find out how young Marion was when she first hooked up with Indy. But let's not talk about that. Like, Indiana Jones could be president of the United States given that particular age thing. But yes.
No, it's absolutely true, that idea. And I can't remember who it was. It was an author, it was a science fiction author, and was accused of, you're just writing escapism. You're just providing escapism. And his response was, the first duty of a prisoner of war is escape.
Yes. Oh, that's... I saw Superman, the movie Superman, just the other day, and I loved it. It was escapism, but I bloody well need escapism these days, don't you? I had tears flooding down my eyes as punk rocker was playing at the end, and I'm like, I felt great, and I felt like the burden of life had been lifted from me, and that's what art is. Like, we create art so we don't die of the truth.
Yeah, if you write something that can make somebody laugh, make somebody cheer, if you're writing romance or erotica, make somebody grab their spouse and go to bed a little early that night, you have brought more good into the world.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, listen, if people are buying it, that's because they need it, they want it. Yeah. And so I don't think that you're becoming a sellout, or that you're compromising anything by providing that service. It's just a matter of, I think people view it as like, well, that's not what you love, right? You don't love those books, so why are you writing them? Well, because I like to write, and I want to make money, so I'm going to try to make those two things intersect somehow. And I know that...
No, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, it's just a lot harder. I wasn't willing to take the risk of, spending a lot more time writing a fantasy or sci-fi novel with a smaller audience that it would have a lot more trouble selling, and it couldn't turn out as fast. So for me, that's what made those decisions.
Yeah, Rob Kiyosaki, the guy who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, makes the point that if it costs you $5 to help somebody, like, how many people can you help? A few thousand, maybe, a couple, 10,000. Before you can't help people anymore. But if you make $5 every time you help somebody, you can help an infinite number of people.
That's beautiful. What a lovely statement. There we go. Now we're approaching the top of the hour, but that's actually a wonderful uplifting statement to finish on.
Not mine. It was Rob Kiyosaki, but it lives rent free in my brain.
Yeah, well, there we go. So he helps you with that. But before we ask you, Jason, to tell everyone where you can find out more stuff, Craig, do you have any more questions?
I'm just, is there any final tips or habits that we didn't touch on, or?
Not particularly. I mean, I got lists and lists and lists and lists, and and I go and I teach this stuff all the time. But the big one is, you can probably do this. I mean, I am not very bright, and I'm a B+ writer at best, and I'm, in my 16th year of doing this professionally full time.
Yeah.
So, like I say, I ain't that bright. I'm a B+ writer. I'm not as good a writer as either of you or most of the people listening. So, you can probably do this.
What a one! Yeah, that's a great thing to do. I mean, look at it. Have you ever picked up a book and read it and been like, "Oh, I could write this"?
Good God.
No, most of the time I read the books and I think, no, I would never be able to write this.
Or you get those books, you're like, damn, I should have written this. I totally could have written this, and this guy's got so much money.
So, Jason, where can people find out more about your what you do, your books, your other things that you do?
Sure. So, anybody got any questions? My email is brickjason@gmail.com. You spell the comma out, so BRICKCOMMAJASON. I thought it was funnier until I spent years explaining that you don't put a comma in it. So you can email me there if you have any questions. I'm all over Facebook. There's maybe 6 Jason Bricks on there, but I'm the only one who pretty much every day talks about writing martial arts and D&D. So I'm pretty easy to spot. You guys seem kind of nerdy. Do you remember Highlander?
Oh yeah. There can be only one.
Yeah.
Yes.
A few months ago, I got a private message from some other dude named Jason Brick with just a picture of the Kurgan.
I love that.
Which, now he and I are buddies. But anyway, you can find me on the Facebooks. On my website, brick-jason.com, again, comma spelled out, is, as we speak, transferring from a previous host to a new host. So by the time this drops, it'll be up and running again. And you can find, I got a couple of years worth of blog advice on there, and you can find my books and my courses and stuff there as well.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, we will make sure to pop a link down in the description of this video. So if you are listening to this or watching it on YouTube and you love what Jason has had to say, then click on that link and go and check out his website and all of the amazing things that he has been doing. And as you scroll down there, you'll pass that big empty comment box. So make sure you leave Jason a comment and let him know how much you appreciated everything he has shared with us today.
And if you think I'm full of shit, reach out too. Tell me how I'm wrong. I love arguing with strangers on the internet.
There we go. You heard it here first. You do that. Don't disappoint. And of course, there is also that subscribe button. If you haven't already, there's the like button. Give that a smash, as the kids say. And also, there's a little bell icon. If you click on that, you will get notified every time there is a new episode of Fully Booked. And of course, there will be a brand new episode of Fully Booked coming out next week. So until then, cheerio.